Watson. She's going to be speaking from the Advanced Manual Entertaining Speech, and could we have Reed give us the objectives for that speech?
It's the humorous speech, Make Them Laugh, project number 3. The objectives are to prepare a humorous speech drawn from your own experience, strengthen the speech by adopting and personalizing humorous material from outside sources, deliver the speech in a way that makes humor effective. The time is 5 to 7 minutes.
Karen is a DTM, and despite this being a humorous speech, she says, don't be disappointed if I'm not funny. I'm not. Well, she's still learning, but luckily she's in Toastmasters and she's going to give us all support. And this is summer. I'm doing an entertaining manual, and I'm going to attempt to be funny. I'm in FOCO for the Fringe Festival, and since this is a humorous speech, I want you to give me a raucous crowd and give her a really loud welcome. Karen! Good warm up?
I'm really glad I'm here, thank you. Could y'all do me a favor and stand up? It's part of my speech, stand up. Sit down, thank you. You just made a motion. You just made a motion.
Yeah.
I am trying to be funny. I told my colleagues I'm going to talk about my job that I love. And my colleague said, nobody's going to think that's funny. That's like saying something like, I'm going to tell you about the Holocaust and make it funny. And the last time I gave my speech at a Toastmasters meeting, the evaluator on project number 1, it's in the book right there, it said, your speech was about as funny as watching paint dry. But today, I'm going to tell you, I got great evaluations on the first project and the second project. So we're on the third project here, so you're going to get my funniest ever. Okay. I love my job. It is one of all the best jobs in the world. How many of you go to meetings, any kind of meetings? I know you go to Toastmasters meetings. How many of you think that meetings sometimes are boring and long, and maybe sometimes they're disorganized and no decision is ever made? I hate long and boring meetings. And I get paid to go to meetings. That's my job. I get Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters and guests, yes, I'm going to tell you why I love my job. Currently, I have 7 billion reasons why I love my job. And if there's no objection, today I'm going to start with number 1, and I'll just talk until my time is run out. No objection? Okay, you're in for it. I'm going to tell you my job definition. I'm going to tell you my job training. And third, my job outlook. My job is taking me places. First of all, my job definition. I feel like I should be on the Wheel of Fortune. My job term is 15 letters, 6 syllables. If you have younger people in your family, hippopotamus, 5 syllables is actually like on, wow, hippopotamus. My job title has 6 syllables, 8 are consonants, 7 are vowels, 4 of which are the letter A. So you can see how difficult my job definition is with that kind of a makeup. It could be an obstacle, but my job, most people can't even pronounce my job title. I am a parliamentarian. I'm a parliamentarian. And it's not that when people can't say it, then I get a chance to tell them exactly what it is. So my job title not only presents an opportunity to tell them how to say parliamentarian, I get to tell them what I do. Now I'm going to tell you about my job training. Probably most of you have jobs that took you days or weeks or months or even years of training. my job, all I have to do for my job is know this book, this entire book, every word of this book. I know it doesn't look like much. It's only 3.5 inches across, 5 inches tall, and 2.5 inches wide. But I have to know every word in this book for my job. It's called Robert's Rules of Order, newly revised 11th edition. So why does this contribute to being my job one of all of the best jobs in the world? Because I always have reading material. I have to know every word. I am constantly reading and rereading this book. You wouldn't want to go to a baseball game and have the umpire say, "Oh, wait a minute, I gotta check the rule book on that." Oh, there it is. No, I have to be able to know on the spot exactly every word in this book. You know what that means? It's reading material, but do you know what this means? Listen to this. Page 151. After a motion to strike out and insert has been adopted, what has been struck out and what has been inserted are subject to the same rule regarding further amendment, as if the striking out and the inserting have been done by separate motions. That means the inserted matter cannot be struck out, and the matter that has been struck out cannot be reinserted again, except through the reconsideration of a vote on the amendment, or through changes in the wording, or the place in a way that presents a new question, parenthesis, under the rules already giving for insert or add or for strikeout, end period. Do you know what this means? This is a cure for insomnia. My outlook for my job. I went to college, I got a degree, my parents encouraged me, and I took the job. My first job was in conflict resolution and mediation. I was an only child, my husband was an only child, and when we had 4 children and they fought, we looked at each other and said, what are they doing? So conflict resolution and mediation was my primary first job, and I thought that was great. But this job, being a parliamentarian, is even better. I get to get inside people's heads at meetings and try to tell them the best way to make decisions, and to listen to what the other side is saying and not just automatically disagree with them. Remember, I have to know every word in this book, but it gets even better. Listen to this. The parliamentarian, forgot my glasses. Only on the most involved matters should the parliamentarian actually be called upon to speak to the assembly, and the practice should be avoided if at all possible. Do you understand that? I get paid to go to meetings to know every single word in this book, and the less I say, the more I get paid. Can you believe that? And the only problem is, how do you market your job when you can't say much about it? All right, fellow Toastmasters, today, maybe your job has a title that's readily identifiable, doctor, teacher. So you've got a head start right there. Every job well done should give you the reason to sleep well at night, even if it's not because of insomnia. And third, when you do your job to the best of your ability, you're making the world better. So I can tell you that your job can be one of all the best jobs in the world if you too embrace your job, you know what it is, and you do it to the best of your ability. And then you'll be like me. You will have one of all the best jobs in the world. And if you join me, then I'll only have 6,999,999 reasons why I have one of all the best jobs in the world, because you'll have one of the best jobs as well. You're Toastmaster.
And I think most all the roles have switched on the agenda, but we're going to have Joe do Karen's, or, right?
I'm gonna do it.
Oh, you'll read, that's right. We switched many times, okay? Will be her coach. So help me welcome to do the round robin coaching.
Thank you. Karen, before I start, please tell us what club you're from
Oh,
and help us understand how you came to be on our docket today.
all right. I am from Road Toasters in Lincoln, Nebraska. My daughter is the owner of Spectra Circus in Fort Collins, and she's performing in the Fringe Festival. And I became a parliamentarian, and I found by joining Toastmasters, I became a better parliamentarian, and all my club members are sick of hearing me talk about parliamentary procedure. So when I'm on the road, I always try to go wherever I can, so that I can talk about parliamentary procedure and explain to the world why it's needed, and because when there's conflict in meetings, nobody wins.
Yeah.
People, so.
Well,
we want world
welcome.
peace.
Glad to have you here. I'm going to share with you some thoughts and ideas that I went through from the perspective of your speech. I think you worked really hard at this to get that humor. I think there's ways that you can uncover a little bit more humor in that. Some of that can be a restructuring, I think, of how you lay out your speech. But for me, I thought it was very enjoyable. But the conflict I had is that the introduction didn't tell me who you were. And I was going, why should I worry about who are you and why are you speaking to us today? So if anything that I could share with you as you go around is make sure that you have some introduction, because this was a new audience. We didn't know you. And that was weighing in my mind and keeping me distracted a little bit from your speech. Anything that's creating a conflict in thought for your audience is going to keep them from hearing your message. I personally kept hearing as a message throughout your speech, I've got the greatest job, I've got the greatest job. It wasn't for about a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes, that we actually found out what that was. I would encourage you to establish that much quicker. For me, a general rule is 30 seconds is what I need to have in front of my audience. There has to be some type of conflict associated with it to keep their interest. So for a suggestion or recommendation, I would encourage you to use your parliamentarian book right up front and start reading through that, because that helps give you a glimpse of what your job is. Don't just tell us about your job. Show us what the job is. I go to work, and what do I hear? All of this, and occasionally someone will ask me a question, and I have to whisper in their ear, or something like that, right? Because of what you shared with us today, I know that you never are to address the audience, or yeah, I needed my glasses today too. So help us understand from you got some cheaters use on. Thanks. So rather than tell us, take us there. And that can be part of that experience of sitting, being the parliamentarian, having someone turn to you and say, what do I do in this case? Just a second, let me turn. You start reading. And then when they say, well, tell them, say, well, according to this, and that's where you introduce that you're not supposed to speak to them. And that can help introduce what you are really doing. And I would really play on how you pronounce it and how you shouldn't pronounce it. I've heard it called this, and I've heard it called this, and I've heard it called this. People call me this, and they call me that. And you then come across with this whole, pronounce it right. This is how you say it. So those are some thoughts initially. Let's get some from the group, open it up to others. Rachel, go ahead.
Karen, thanks. It was a good speech. I liked your theme. I'm with Reed about, I would even start like parliamentarian. How many syllables does that have? And then, you know, because you were telling us all about it, but without telling us what it was. So you lost me. I was like, okay, I don't care. Are we talking about hippopotamus here? Okay, so, and then, but it's, I mean, once you actually told me what you did, I got excited. You know, you probably didn't notice, but I'm totally blind. So for me, it's like, wow, imagine like, and then when you showed the book, I mean, I know the Robert's rules. So for example, another thing that would be curious is, you need to know every word on that book. How many words that book has? You can go to Amazon on Kindle, it will tell you exactly how many words is in there. So when you say, I need to know every single word, right? And then you say, how many of you need to know, I don't know, 2,400 blah, blah, blah words on your job? And then, you enter that concept in there and it'll be funny.
Okay.
Another thing that's pretty powerful that you could use is pauses. So you used a lot of pauses, but you didn't use them in a way that would be funny. So usually pauses bring fun out, like humors out, when it's used not in the normal way, but in the wrong way. So, for example, you read about, that first bit you read about the book, you gave the punctuation right. I wouldn't give any punctuation, I would just read like, blah, 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 and then you pause, and then you read the last bit, or the punchline that you want people to get. Then it's funny. Because you're going like, and you're like, whoa, what's good? And then you pause and you go, boom. I don't remember right now, I forgot to write it down, but you had a punchline. So in the second part that you read the same thing, right, that you say, but she should never be called upon it, or better if you don't. So if you read everything super fast, you gave that little pause, but say, but she should never be called upon it, and better if she doesn't. See what I'm saying?
Okay.
Then everybody will crack up.
Okay. I used it for it cures insomnia. It was supposed to be so boring.
Right.
But see, that could also be one of those that you could lead with in the meetings themselves. Some of those meetings get boring, right?
Yeah.
Meetings are a cure for insomnia. Let's go to somebody else. Alex, you have some feedback?
Yeah, sure.
So I want to echo what Karen, I want to echo what Reed and Rachel said, is that the introduction was a little too long. I almost thought that you weren't going to reveal what the job was until the very, very end. So that could be a strategy, and you could have these different stories, as was mentioned, reading through Robert's rules, or do it a little bit sooner so that we can figure that. So that was a tension in my thinking.
Okay.
What I really like is that you came here with so much enthusiasm about your job, about something that so many people would find not exciting. And your enthusiasm really helps, particularly when you're talking to an audience that you don't know. I know that several of us have actually done parliamentary procedures as one of those leadership tasks in Toastmasters. So we have some familiarity, but you couldn't know that just walking in here blind. I think that by telling one or two of those stories, as was suggested, that knowing all of these things, that you could really draw people in, those who have done parliamentary procedures versus those who have been subjected to it.
Joe, you have something quick?
Yep, just real quick. One of the gems I think that you had buried in the speech was talking about you being a unique child, your husband a unique child, and having 4 kids. And I thought you were going to use that as a joke, as a humorous point. And I think you could. Say, we had never dealt with conflict. I had 4 kids. So, of course, my first job was conflict resolution, or something, something like that. And again, with the pause
Set up.
to set up to that.
Yeah.
And I think with that, you could lead into maybe the importance of conflict resolution, but also the importance of Robert's rules. You talked a lot about how boring meetings can be and how terrible that can be, but also point out how important it is to have somebody that can resolve those things to make them get smoother. The enthusiasm just showed through, and your enthusiasm, your level of energy was incredible. And what I didn't follow from that, was something around okay, so how does that help the meeting? How does that make it not boring? But you got to it, but I think you could play with the conflict resolution, and I had to learn on the job or at home or wherever, and then that carried over into being able to resolve conflicts and make the meetings run smoother.
So Karen, what I heard from the audience today was that reveal your title of your position earlier. You had great enthusiasm. Pause. And that is in two different ways. One is to create tension for the punchline. The other is don't step on the laugh when you have something humorous and your audience is trying to catch up with that. Don't let them figure it out and start giggling or laughing or snickering or whatever. The other is to use some extreme stories that happen within your environment and make sure you create that setup and punch of humorous elements. Glad you could present today, and we'll turn it over to Terry for our next speaker.